Hello, my wonderful Agilists. I'm very glad to have you back again to my channel. I'm glad to see you all again back to Aisha Scrum platform, a place for all Scrum Master to continue to learn and grow. Welcome back again to this channel. I'm very happy to have you all today. So, in my previous video, I discussed about elevator pitch and the importance of elevator pitch going through interviews, right? And I did mention that we're going to discuss our next topic, which is mistakes Scrum Masters do when they're in an interview or before they even go to the interview. What are the common mistakes Scrum Masters do? So let's go into them. So we all know that going through interview is a process, right? And in our world, applying for the Scrum Master job is very challenging. You do all the steps of applying, and then at the end, you notice that you have to sometimes go to series of interviews. Sometimes you have level 1, level 2, level 3, and you're asked. All of this can be very nerve-wracking, right? So let's talk about all these common mistakes out there, which some of them myself I'm guilty of. I've done some of them, and also ways we can look for how we can improve in them. Well, first we must bring awareness to them. So number one is Scrum Masters applying to job without reading the job description. Very, very important. I know sometimes we just want to put more application, have those applications out there, and now you get called for a job and you're like, okay, which of the jobs calling me? I don't even know the job description. So it's very important for you to know the job description. So that's another one common mistakes we do. Another common mistake we do, we have a lot of jobs in our resume, and we can actually defend what's all in our resume. What do I mean by defend it? So you've written what you've done in a particular job, and sometimes this experience are years of experience, right? And something that you've done 3, 4, 5 years ago won't be in your memory like something you are currently doing in your job. So it's very important that you look at your resume, you go over stuff that you've done in the past so that you can now prep for your interview. So mistakes that Scrum Masters do or potential Scrum Masters do is having their resume and not going over their past place of employment. So that's another one. So 3, another mistakes we do is our elevator pitch, right? So the last video I was discussing about our elevator pitch and what are the things you have to cover in your elevator pitch. And sometimes people go to interviews, and when they're asked about their elevator pitch, they basically will go on and on and on and on. And as you all know, I am an agile coach, and sometimes in my position, I do interviews potential Scrum Masters. And I won't forget, recently we had an interview, and we had a particular Scrum Master candidate. They literally was going over their elevator pitch for like up to 10 minutes. And we were like sitting there listening to them. We did not stop them, right? Because it's very important for you to also listen when you are interviewing, and also you have just to interviewers too. So this particular Scrum Master was going on and on and on, and before they were able to even realize they were on for like 10 minutes, we were already so demotivated to even move forward. So another common mistake Scrum Master do, we will go on and on and on about the elevator pitch. So another mistake Scrum Master do is not asking questions. When you're asked at the end of the interview, do you have any question? And you're like, oh, nope. So there's no such thing as no. It's very important that at the end of your interview, you always ask question. You ask question, and you ask question that you have an answer to the question. And sometimes people do ask question and they don't know the answer to what they are asking. And I've been in an interview where actually, when I'm asked the question, I will ask that same question to the interviewee. Like, okay, what about your answer? I'm curious to see what you will say to that answer. So it's very important that when you are asking questions to your interviewer, that you also will have an answer to it, and use that opportunity to impress your interviewer. So another common mistakes we do are in Scrum interview, when you actually go to the interview without practicing in front of an audience. I know it sounds weird, right? Practicing in front of an audience is actually very, very important. I know sometimes you have like a colleagues or your Scrum group or your mentor group where you all practice about interviewing skills, but it's actually very, very good where you actually present to them about what you watch how you're going to be talking when you go to this interview. So you demonstrate how you will act, how you will talk in this interview. So that's another mistake we do. We don't actually practice before we go to the interview. Other mistakes we also do is not basically being unaware of your non-verbal cue. Basically, you go to the interview, you're just looking down, and you might not even know. Sometimes you are unaware of it. So that's why it's good to practice in front of people so they can actually. So, oh, by the way, you're not looking at the camera. Very, very important. I know for some culture, looking at the camera is might be like disrespect, like based on some different culture. But in the United States, because I'm focusing more on that particular population, looking at the camera shows confidence. And bring me back to my next mistakes that we do as a Scrum Master is basically overconfidence, right? So you go to this interview, you're like, oh yes, I know Scrum. Yes, I know everything about agile, and I know everything about my work, and I will go in there and impress these people. It's good to be confident, but not overconfident to the point that you are talking over the interviewer. It's very, very crucial, very important to be humble. And we all know that in this field, right? Because your soft skills, they're not only looking at what you are saying when you go in this interview, they're also looking at how you are communicating. Are you humble? Can you actually listen and not just talk? And another mistake, which will bring me back to my point about not listening, where you are so quick to want to jump to answer. I'm very guilty of that. I remember the first time I did my interview, as when they start asking the question, and some of them too can be up to for nervousness sake, right? And I will even give them chance to complete the interview. I start saying, well, this is what I'll start wanting to answer the question. And the viewer. Other common mistakes like potential Scrum Masters and Scrum Masters do in interview is when you are asked an open-ended question and you are given like a definition in a book or a definition or summary on it. Like for example, when you're asked, how have you facilitated daily Scrum? And you start describing in daily Scrum, I ask what happened yesterday, what I'll be working on today, if I have any impediments. That's not what they ask you. They didn't ask you what is daily Scrum. You are asked, how have you facilitated daily Scrum? So you give a scenario-based answer using the SBAR technique. The situation, you describe the situation in a scenario where you actually have done that. You discuss the background and the action you took and recommendation. So you use that SBAR technique to answer your questions. Another thing Scrum Masters make mistakes in interview is when they go to interview and they are asked, why did you apply to this position? And they can't even come up with an answer with that. It's very simple, right? That's if you notice in my previous video, I was referring about that being part of your elevator pitch so that they will have a follow-up question on that. So you are hidden on those notes. And if you notice, if you hit on those 5 technique notes, it will reduce some of your follow-up question. And most of the time, if I go to interview, and they'll be, oh, you actually have already answered 3 out of this question I had for you already from your elevator pitch. So that's why the elevator pitch is very important. If you've not watched that video, my link below, you'll see my previous video about elevator pitch. Another common mistakes we do when we go to interview is when you are asked a particular question, you are basically answering something out of that. So what do I mean by this? So when you are asked, what metric have you used? And you start explaining, oh, my team, you start giving all this scenario answer. You are asked what? So that's a simple answer. Oh, I've used the bundle chart, we've used velocity. Simple as that. You are not asked to start describing the whole metrics or describing the whole bundle chart, interpreting all that, because you're just asked simple question. Other mistakes too Scrum Master will do in an interview is when they're asked about your team dynamic. Very, very important, because if you work with your team every day, you should know who and who is part of your team. And then the Scrum Master might start saying, oh, I work with this team, I work with that team, but what are your team made up of? not knowing how to answer that question. Other mistakes we do as a going through this interview is saying a lot of um. I'm guilty of that. I used to do that too a lot. I'll go in, I'll be like and then I realize, wow, I was seeing a lot of and that also can be sign of nervousness, right? We all have that. Myself, I had that in me. That's something I was aware of. I started like working towards seeing less of and instead, if I don't know someone to the answer, I just keep quiet and say, okay. Then I take a pause and now answer. And sometimes we do this mistake when we go to interview, whereby we did not research about the company before going to the interview. It's very, very important before you go to any interview about any company for you to take your time and research about that company. And if you research about that company, you are asked, why should we hire you? Or why are you interested in our company? Or why did you apply? So you have answer to that question. So hopefully all these points I've given is important. And another thing, one last note too, your non-verbal cue, right? So sometimes we are just so focused on answering all of these questions and we forget that we are not looking at the camera. We forget that we are seeing a lot of I do that a lot. Sometimes I have people like they scratch, you scratch their head. They're showing all this non-verbal cue of nervousness. Other things sometimes people do when they go to interview, they forget that in interview, it's basically for both ways. As much as this company would like to know you to determine if they want to hire you, you are also doing the same. You are also going to this interview and assessing that company based on how you see them communicating and the questions how they are answering you, and the cue you're getting from them can also help you determine if this is truly a company you want to work for. So don't just go to interview. And this is my last notes and last giveaway for this whole video today is my quick tips. So what do I mean by that? So my tips is have your mind. We always in agile talk about mindset, right? So the mindset starts with us. Because ourselves, if we are not agile, we cannot like go to a team and empower them and influence them to be agile. So going to this interview, you first of all have to have your mindset shift and stop seeing it as a question and answer or seeing it as a test, but instead change your mindset to see it as, oh, getting to know someone. Or what I used to usually do, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to take this interview like I'm meeting a friend for a first time. I'm meeting a friend for a first time and my mindset shifts that way, and my goal is to communicate as casual where we both want to know each other. So don't see it as a test. Don't see it as, oh my God, if I go this and I say this thing wrong and that's it. And don't blame yourself. And the job that's meant for you will never pass you by. And just practice and join community group and go over your resume, go back to videos. There's a lot of YouTube videos, practicing skills on interview techniques and all that. Do practice, speak in front of an audience. You can even use your family member just to speak in front of them and use that as a practice, and you practice until you get better. But just know that the job that's truly meant for you will not pass you by. Thank you all again. See you again next time. In my next video, we're going to talk about more about interview tips in the Scrum arena. Thank you all for your support. I truly appreciate you all thus far. Thank you. Have a wonderful time.